All right, folks, welcome to the Power Tour panel. Okay.
Woo!
I have a special guest who's going to kind of kick things off here. That we're going to be showing for the first time here in 30 years. We're going to be actually seeing the Power Tour, the long-lost Power Tour. Special thanks to Ninjor himself, Mr. Gus Park, who has provided us with this really great. Thank you for sharing this with all the fans.
Thank you, Gus. I'm assuming my check's in the mail.
And without further ado, I would like to introduce a very special guest who's going to kick things off before we get started. So come on up here.
Yes. Yes.
You have the power.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Power Tour! Woo!
Need your figure, brother.
Yes, songster figures. Come on, let's get them. The Power Tour was 30 years ago, but now we're all here, so let's start the show!
Pretty perfect. Who was that guy?
The son of Songster. All right, folks. So let's just go down the row here before we get started. And please introduce yourself and tell us what role you played in the Power Tour.
Jack Wadsworth, I was Orko. Oh, wait, no, I was He-Man. That's right, He-Man.
Leslie Wadsworth, She-Ra.
Erik Van Baars, Gelehrter.
Yes.
Actually, you guys were two different people before you changed into He-Man and She-Ra. I'm just
give it away,
not
Gus.
giving away the secrets. Gus Park, and I played Ninjor and a few other characters, and choreographer of the battle sequences.
I'm here for the intervention. My name's Zack Hoffman. I played Man-at-Arms.
My name is Forbes Candlish. I was the assistant director, and I produced all the film sequences for the live stage event.
Very good.
Okay, folks. I don't want to take up too much time here, so let's get the Power Tour rolling here. And as it goes on, you folks can provide commentary, share your memories, any comments you want to make as we go along. Okay. And so, can we get the video going here? All right. Awesome. Thank you.
How long is the film?
Couple,
3 days.
It's an hour and a half. Gus said, yeah.
About an hour and a half.
Okay.
Disclaimer.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, it's about 3 seconds.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are making final preparations for the intergalactic transportation of the Masters of the Universe to this arena. Bear with us, please, as we attempt to make visual contact with
Okay,
Captain
that's me.
Morrison
I also
in the
did that part. I
transporter
forgot.
station. The next voice you hear will be coming from the far-off planet of Eternity.
Greetings from Eternia. My name is Captain Morrison, and I'll be supervising the beam-down procedures that will bring He-Man and his heroic warriors to your planet. In just a few minutes, the Masters of the Universe will be transported through time and space by way of the incredible Masterdome you see on the floor before you from this transporter station here on Eternia. We're in final preparations at this time, and I ask for your patience and understanding as we initiate final control procedures for this, the most historical of intergalactic events. Excuse me. Stand by ground tran, stand by Eternia control.
Ground tran standing by, Captain. Roger, Transporter 1, Eternia control.
Gus, you said he's wearing a Captain Power
Ignition
outfit?
system
That's exactly
engaged.
right. The helmet he's wearing, there was a show filmed in Canada called Captain Power. It lasted just a blink. And the helmet he's wearing, Captain Morrison is wearing, is from the Captain Power series. This was filmed in Calgary.
And that captain there was Rich Hogue. He co-wrote the show with Gary Goddard.
There's no cause for alarm. This is strictly routine.
And Mary Tyler Moore was one of the producers of the show?
That's right.
Yeah, it was Front Row Theaters out of Cincinnati, Pace Productions out of Houston, and MTM. first of all, you have to imagine that you're 7 or 8,
Yeah.
10, 12 years old, and you're in an arena in a live show. So what this, the Power Tour really does, we were talking about it earlier, and you know, there's so much action in this show. You're gonna wonder why we have so much action. It's fighting and roller skating and dancing. So very, very physical, but we bring the children in with the Eternian anthem, and we swear them in, we interact with them. The cast goes out. This introduction obviously is kind of a low quality recording, but as this progresses, you've got to kind of immerse yourself into a live stage show. Hopefully this will play well on these screens, but it was really a spectacular show. It took us, 5 semi-trucks, was it?
5 semi.
You know, so think of 5 40-foot trailers going down the highway.
Hey, you're talking over my part now.
Well, speak up.
It seems like these screens are a little bit out of focus. Is it? That's the best. That's all there is, huh?
Yeah, those are live voices. Some of them recorded. The Man-at-Arms and Man-at-Arms and Songster are live.
So they're beaming all of us down to earth, is what they're doing right now.
Can you give us a little volume on that?
And
Yeah, let's immerse the crowd in this.
And Stacy Overseer, who played Tila, was an Olympic gymnast. She was a rhythmic gymnast, so she added a lot of context to the show as far as choreography and special skills.
The bravest woman I know.
Marcy and Orko. She was phenomenal. I think she was 4'10". She was tiny.
That must have been difficult doing this show in the costumes, dancing and running around, like, particularly Skeletor, I would imagine, with the face prosthetics and everything. Like, what was that like?
You just didn't have you didn't have any peripheral vision because of the masks, so you knew what was going on, and you kind of identified the topography and the geography of the set and hoped you were there. I had one time where a track opened up beneath me and I fell under the pod, and I'd never been under there before, so Skeletor was still speaking and I was lost underneath in the underworld, and finally got out with a big bruise and a really badly wounded stagehand, but the show went on.
I saw a picture of Skeletor at Radio City Music Hall, and he was on the roof terrorizing like the populace down below. What was that all about?
That was publicity. That wasn't me.
It wasn't you.
So what happened was we got a call. Our publicist got a call, and so they flew Leslie and I in to save New York City, right? So there's Skeletor on the top of Radio City Music Hall, and of course we had to save the city, which we did. Clearly, still there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we saved it then.
From the garbage strike.
That's right.
What is it? I'm not sure, but it's on a collision course with Earth. With Earth? Give me full screen. Yes. Activate photo scan.
Look out, everyone. I think this could be one of Skeletor's tricks.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, Men-at-Arms, but I've got my own way of space travel.
Rock on, everyone! The Royal Guard!
It's already rolling.
So I think we were talking about it today. I think we did, was it like 300 shows?
More than 300 shows.
More than 300 shows. So it took us a little over a year. Is that right?
Over a year.
A little bit
Yeah,
over a year we toured. Quite a
You
year.
went all over the U.S. and Canada.
U.S. and Canada.
Turn this part up a little bit.
We look forward to sharing with you some of the wonders found only on our beloved Eternia.
All hail the King and Queen!
Joe Davis, who played King Randor, was a walk-on for the Oakland Raiders.
Leslie did her own hair for this show.
She also doesn't look a day older 30 years later.
Man in the universe.
Bless you,
Ladies
boy.
and gentlemen, boys and girls, He-Man!
So you can't hear it, guys, but I'm telling you, the crowd was screaming.
Well, this was Canada.
That's Canada.
Canada was a little different than the U.S., but yeah, it was a little different.
So I've got a funny thing about Castle Grayskull. So this was like the second Castle Grayskull, because when we did Radio City Music Hall, which was a great hall to perform in, we had 19 consecutive sellouts, so it was really exciting. But Castle Grayskull caught on fire during one of our performances, and it was such a great set. You guys remember that, of course,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, the pyros.
The pyros got it because there was a lot of pyrotechnics, and so they had to quickly rebuild a new Castle Grayskull, which never really was like the first one.
And the show kept going. I mean, guys are out there, and we're still doing the show nonstop. We didn't stop the show for nothing. We kept going. The track was rolling. So yeah. Yeah, for those who bought a program, on the program is the original skull, Castle Grayskull, not this one that you're going to see.
So while the castle was burning on stage, like you guys continued the tour and they were rebuilding it as you were traveling.
They had a backup. They had a backup, and they were working on it right away. It came right away.
Now, with such a huge show like this, how many trucks were involved with transporting?
Well, they mentioned five.
Five.
Originally, and it kind of cut back a little bit as time went on because of costs, and some of the things weren't working. Some of the
I was going to say, no one had ever done a family tour of this scale, not even close. The biggest thing before that was probably Sesame Street, and this was more like a rock and roll package for a family show. I mean, the lights and sound alone, truck and a half, 2 trucks.
We've got an exciting array of events tonight.
Yeah, it was enormous. We had there's one particular scene where they had this huge elephant kind of thing, and they call it a stellafont. And 3 or 4 of the bad guys would hide in it, and you come in from behind, and the legs would open up, and we'd come out, and we'd start battling and warring. But it was very cumbersome. It was just getting in the way, trying to maneuver it, so it went bye-byes. So they had to get rid of that.
Did they get rid of that early on, or was it later in the run? Or?
I think later on. I think somewhere midway, close to it. So there were little things like that kind of changed. They had to lighten the load a little bit. But,
Hey, here comes Songster.
Oh, here's Songster. Hold. You gotta be.
What's that? A little louder?
Johnny, you look good.
My name is Songster. Are you ready to hear the legends of Eternia? Well, are you? I've got stories to tell. Let me weave you a spell that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Let me take you along as I sing you my song on the magic tour of your fantasy. Welcome to my universe, masters of the universe. Welcome to my universe, masters of
Erik, you played Songster as well at times when Doug Howard was out, right?
I was the songster cover. So when Doug couldn't go on, I would go on and do the role, and then someone else would cover Gelehrter. So actually, I was Zack's cover. I remember I was Zack's cover when he was sick too. So I had a lot of fun playing different roles during
Oh,
the tour.
awesome. Yeah, and those roles, the Man-at-Arms and Songster were live. So you
Were
had
the
to
two
sing
live roles. So
music, yeah.
I just can't, like that being lowered from how high was he? 50 feet?
it was about 35 feet in the air, and at the very top of the show, when that pod went up, he went up in it, and so he was up there the whole time. And you were standing, when I did it, you were standing on this little grate, looking down at everything underneath you. It was cool and frightening.
Thank you, Calvin. Let me take you back in time. Back before there was a He-Man. Before She-Ra. To a magical time when Eternia was ruled by 5 good wizards. This is the oldest of tales. There's a place where we
Erik
can
was also a
go
wizard.
I was a wizard as well.
Oh, awesome.
Outer space.
Everybody's doing double, triple duty here in the show. Yeah.
Yeah, running backstage and changing and running back on and off. And costume changes one after another.
The costumes were gorgeous, though. They really were beautiful.
Now, did they have understudies for He-Man and She-Ra too?
Just once, we were in Minnesota and we were performing above an ice arena. And Jack and I got so sick. We had been, we would go ahead of the cast and visit a lot of really incredibly sick children in the hospital. This is what happened was our characters kind of morphed into something beyond what we could have even imagined, because Make-A-Wish got involved, and there were a lot of families, and that some of the children, that was their last wish, was they wanted to meet He-Man or She-Ra, and so it just took on this whole other life of its own, and we felt so incredibly humbled and responsible at the same time. And so anyway, we had visited some of these hospitals and we had gotten sick, and then we were performing over this ice show,
And not only that, but our dressing room was like halfway around the arena, and they would leave the loading dock open. So as I'm taking off this 35-pound neoprene suit, I'm leaving it down, and I'm going back to the dressing room. And as I'm passing the dock, the sweat on because it's 35 below outside, the sweat on the leotard that I wore underneath the costume would start to crystallize. You'd hear it.
Wow.
Yeah, scary.
Evil snake men poured forth. The good wizards were thrown into a battle to defend their return.
So it's hard to see. On the pod, there were all these tunnels that came out, and then there were many trampolines on the edge. So these snake people were jumping off these trampolines and flipping onto the pod.
Oh, wow.
All the dancers were gymnastic.
Yeah, the dancers were fantastic on the show. Just amazing.
Some of the smoke they were using was oil smoke, and so it would get on the floor and people would slip and slide once in a while too, and that was another hazard. But we managed. We kept going, and we didn't let it bother us.
Can't really tell, but what Songster's doing is he's introducing the story of basically how Eternia and He-Man and She-Ra came to be. And it was a great a great way to introduce the audience to all of these characters and how these guys became evil and all this good stuff. It's hard to see.
Can we put the volume a little higher for this part?
With his mortal bodies transformed into solid walls of a great stone fortress. A fortress that would hold forever the secrets of the wizard's power. And so, the good wizards of Eternia became Castle Grayskull. For better, rule forever. Until Grayskull. Beautiful sorceress appear from the mist.
Oh, you still remember all the lyrics?
I'm listening to it.
The awesome magic of the power sword.
Behold, this is the power. Told is the power. Behold.
It's too bad you can't see the details of these costumes, but this was the sorceress, and this costume was exquisite, and they held up really well over a year, of all these performances, but they were just beautiful.
Is the sorceress singing live as well, or
No, that was recorded.
The people of Eternia lived in fear before that return. The once proud and peaceful people.
Beth Lawrence, I believe, was who the recorded voice is.
To claim the sword. And that is the story of how Castle Grayskull, the sorceress, and the power sword came to be. Now then, many years passed before a great king arose to lead the people of Eternia. His name was Randall. His fate would have it a queen was to appear also. This is how they met. Here's the story of King Randall, how he met his lady. Good King Randall met his lady in the strangest way. On an evening like this evening, everything seemed normal till the people noticed something high up out in space. Like a star.
Gus, you told me a story about, weren't you teasing King Randor on stage at some point and try to get him to break character or something?
Began to falter and spin. Out of control.
I was going to wait for the part to come. Yeah, because usually what I do is I try to get Jack to break. He's Prince Adam before he changes into He-Man. And I come out as a guard. And, after so many of the shows, it becomes monotonous. So I thought, I have to break him somehow. So one time I had one of the girls dress me up with full girl makeup, lipstick, eyeshadow, everything. And I run up there. He wouldn't even look at me. He knew I was trouble, so I come up there. Sire, our lands are in the seas. Skeletor's forces are on the march. Who will lead us? And he's like... So, but it wasn't enough. He turned his head. It wasn't enough. But this next time, I put on this long mustache. And I go, Sire, our lands are in the sea. And he loses it. He turns his back. He's cracking up, turns his back to the audience. He's laughing. King Randor comes over, rips the mustache off. Just comes over, never misses a cue. He's right on cue. And he just keeps going, and I'm like, yo! And it just, the tape and everything, and I was furious, but I got Jack to break finally, and that was my goal, and I don't know if I got fined for that too, probably.
No, but Songster, he walked around on a couple of his shows and he had this fake pile of dog doo on his shoulder. We're like, are you kidding me? Don't you guys remember that? Yeah. After a while, like Beth said, we had to keep ourselves fresh. So we would try to crack each other up.
So every time I see Marcy, I just, Orko go, like inside she's going, I'm blind, I can't see, I'm on the stage, oh my God.
That's right.
She had a hard job.
Yeah.
Really hard.
In honor of Orko, I brought a 30-year-old thing they sold, for the children to buy. And this, it still works after 30 years. And so the kids that were there for Orca would hold this up as it twinkled. This doesn't stay on. So I thought I had to bring that.
You had one?
Wow.
Special.
It's great that it still works, too.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for those who lip synced for the show, were you mouthing the words, or were you actually saying the dialogue out loud and the audience couldn't hear it, or were you just mouthing it?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, as Skeletor, no one could see my mouth, so it was a lot of just jaw and shoulder acting. But as other characters, when your face was present, I would speak a lot.
Yeah, I know when I first started with the show, a big inspiration, everybody inspired everybody, but Zack was trying to explain to me, you got to be bigger. Like Erik was saying, if Skeletor was just like, that's it. But this, and you had the shoulders. So I was just acting just bland, and Zack says, you got to be bigger. You're this small on this stage. You've got to be bigger. You got to project and do more physically. And so
you got to play to that little 7-year-old that's 45 rows up.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, remember, we were playing arenas, not theaters, other than Radio City. And those arenas were pretty big.
This is a great introduction to Hordak coming up.
I am Hordak. You will obey me.
Hordak had returned, and to gain his vengeance upon the people of Eternia, his plan was to steal the 2 royal children.
Come with me! No! Quickly, men! Search the palace! Find Gelehrter!
By man-at-arms heroic action, Adam had been spared, but Hordak had stolen the female infant daughter. The people wept at the loss. There was sadness in the kingdom. God, the sweet adored, precious daughter, a princess, come forevermore. That night, King Randor prayed that his son Adam would grow to be bold, heroic and strong, and be the hero that all of Eternia needed. For some 20 years, King Randor watched his son Adam grow into a man, but a hero must wield a sword. And first he must learn to
Get
hold
ready,
it.
folks.
Here we go.
Never got the hang of it.
No, you're doing it all wrong.
Oh, Father, I'll never get the hang of this.
Well, pick it up. Try again.
I'll never get the hang of this.
That is not my voice, okay? Gary, who did that?
No. The sword
Same
is a
guy who
weapon,
did
not a
Baars.
shield.
Did he?
I'll never get
Is
the
that
hang of
you,
this.
Forbes?
Pick
That was
it
not
up.
me.
He's getting
He's just saying
worse.
that.
I'll never get the hang of this.
Now, Adam, I said handle first.
With every drop of the sword, King Randor grew more impatient.
Ignore this scene.
Adam, my son, time grows short. Will you never learn to conquer your fear?
I'm sorry, Father, but I haven't the taste for weapons.
Try harder, my boy. We're all counting on you.
I will try, Father. I will.
Good.
Meanwhile, Man-at-Arms and Adam weren't the only ones practicing the art of battle. Hordak, too, had found the most willing students. And so came Skeletor.
I had coffee that day.
That was an evil jump.
Evil
You
against
couldn't
evil.
scare the kids too bad.
Practicing
feels better than more than 8,000 kids booing at me.
By the way, the swords you hear clinging, that's real. That's not taped. King, 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 that's real. That's going on.
No matter how hard he practiced, what could stop the evil plan?
He-Man's about to spoil their evil plan, by the way.
I think I'll get the hang of this. Good, Adam, I'll show you how. The Hordak feared for his life. He knew his alliance with Skeletor, the key to the taking of Castle Grayskull. And so it was that Adam began to learn. Though not the hero Randor had envisioned, at least Adam showed promise. Regardless, time was near when Adam would confront both Hordak and Skeletor. There was Adam, the son of good King Randor. There was Hordak and evil Skeletor.
And those shoulders again, boy.
I based my Skeletor off of Joan Collins in Dynasty.
This is the scene I was talking about where I wear makeup and things like that. I wasn't doing it in this particular video, but that's where I'd make him lose it. And that King Randor ripped off my mustache.
I can't. I have neither the will nor the strength.
Then we are finished. Eternia is no more.
Father?
This is such a beautiful scene coming up.
Doubting his courage, Adam was paid a visit by the mystical sorceress of
Think about being a little 7 or 8-year-old kid.
She appeared to him. Ooh, Adam. What you gonna do when the darkness comes to call?
And remember, Doug is still alive this whole time, so throughout the show, he had to keep doing this night after night, live, with the vocals.
If you see wrong, then right it. Are you gonna stand and fight it? Are you gonna run and hide or stand up tall? Up tall. What will you do when the darkness comes to
Harmonizing with recording.
If you guys have questions, please go up to the microphone to ask so that the rest of the room.
And by the way, just this is kind of fun. The gal that played the sorceress, Sally Bartunik, she actually went on to become
American Ninja Warrior?
No, she was an American gladiator.
Gladiator.
I'm trying to think of who she. Selena. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I'll catch her name. She became an American gladiator.
This is the transformation.
to be anything you want to be. 'Cause you can be a hero, you can be anything you want. You can stand against the darkest night, be the spark that lights the light. You can be a hero, you can be anything you want. You can change the world from bad to good if you only knew it could be you.
You could hear a pin drop every night during this scene.
Yeah,
The kids were so focused.
Yeah, we had the kids.
What you gonna do when the darkness comes to call? Are you gonna run and hide or stand up tall?
Adam, take hold of your destiny.
And so, Adam was transformed into He-Man!
going bananas.
Meanwhile, Conan, warriors of evil, tightened their siege on Castle Grayskull, and He-Man knew the time had come to face a real enemy. If this is wrong, I am gonna stand and fight. I am gonna run and hide and stand and
Now the voices from the cartoon, John Irwin and Melinda Briggs, I believe that. It sounded like Alan Oppenheimer's laugh there. Did you ever get to meet them during the run of the Power Tour, the voice actors?
I don't remember meeting them, unfortunately.
You did meet the movie actors, though, right? Didn't you? Did you meet them at some point?
Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah.
That was it.
Because Gary was directing the film at around the same time.
That's it, right, that's right.
We rehearsed the tour here in Whittier, actually. We rehearsed in this area. And then we went on to Baton Rouge, where we had tech rehearsals at Nancy Adams.
Now, Sally and I had a great sword fight every night. She was fabulous. Remember, this is deep into the tour, so we're hitting hard. We know exactly where the sword's going to be.
He-Man, do not harm her, for she is of royal blood. The daughter of Granddaughter Marlene and your own true sister, Dora.
So He-Man split the sword in two, bestowing upon his sister the power of Grayskull.
He-Man, you shall not be alone in your struggle against evil. Your destiny is to be shared by another, your beautiful sister, Dora. Henceforth to be known as She-Ra.
And so the prophecy was fulfilled. Adam and Dora came to understand their destinies as He-Man, She-Ra, and the Masters of the Universe! The forces of evil stood large. Now heroic warriors of good soon came face to face with the evil Skeletor. Skeletor had vowed to wipe out He-Man, obtain the coveted power sword, and gain entrance to Grayskull. Hordak had vowed to enslave She-Ra, take over all of Etheria, make everyone his slave in the fright zone. He-Man, She-Ra, Hordak, and Skeletor. Stage was set. All of eternity is at stake.
let you do your own thing?
I would say that after a while, that everyone was out there doing their own thing because we were actually producing a Broadway show in New York called Sherlock's Last Case, virtually at the same time, with Frank Langella, who of course had played Skeletor in the movie, and that's how Gary originally met him, and he asked us to do this show that he was going to do in New York. So then I would go in and out every once in a while, to see everyone and just make sure everything was going along. But that was like, after Radio City, because everyone thinks we debuted at Radio City, but really we were out for 5 or 6 weeks before we went there. Baton Rouge, making it so that it could be done in New York, which there's a whole story which we'll get to when we get to the track about the skating track about that.
And Zack, you were doing a lot of voiceover work, of course, Zartan, famously. Like, did you have to kind of put the voiceover career on the back burner to tour?
Absolutely, yeah. I just it's once you pack up and go on the road, you go on the road, and I start sort of over again when I got off the road. It was worth it.
Thank you, Calvin. And that is the story of how He-Man and She-Ra came to be. Did you enjoy it? Wonderful! Let's see if we can... The power. Race He-Man completely and Skeletor.
The masquerade has gone on long enough without Skeletor.
Where are you, bone face? How did you get here? Show yourself.
Where I am is of no consequence. But I warn you, I am very close. She-Ra, listen to me, you muscular mass of virtue. Your clever little Eternian legends were a lie, a fraud, painful.
Calvary. What you're about to witness is Eternia's greatest sport.
What happened?
And greatest challenge.
What happened there?
You see, on our planet, when there are
So what's
differences to be
happening is
said,
that Skeletor has taken over the transporter,
test of endurance,
and he's coming down to
strength,
Earth
speed and skill.
to kidnap
And
everyone.
we call this test the power race. Here's how the game is played. There are 2 teams of 4 members each, but there can only be one, and only one winner.
So
The
let me
players
just
pull
say
out
this
this
about
track
the
to a
power
series of
race.
obstacles. As the play increases,
So I was given a
the
script,
obstacles become more and more
and
treacherous.
in the script,
Our power race.
everything's
Very
there,
much
and then
like
it
a
gets to a
little
thing and it
roller
says
skate.
power race.
Play continues
Orko wins.
until one player remains. Judge's decision is final.
So you had to make it all up, right, Zack? You wrote it all out.
And then Tony would say yay or nay, or
And now, lineups for the 2 teams. We begin with the Evil Warriors. And starting forward.
So Forbes, tell us about your idea of putting this roller skating scene into the show.
Actually, Gary had, by the way, for everyone that doesn't know, that's Gary Goddard right there, guy who directed the movie. He also wrote the script for this. And Gary had been over to see Starlight Express. And as I'm sure many of you know, that entire show is done on roller skates. And so we were trying to put everything that we could think of that was in an arena into an arena show for families. And that's how the roller skating idea came about. And we had some of the best skaters in the world in that show. And I'll let Gus talk on that.
Yeah, he was watching me when I had to learn how to skate and learn how to do gymnastics on skates, and so he was there laughing at me because here I am, this tough martial artist, falling all over the place, and him standing over me laughing, and I'm going, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to get it. So after a while, I did get it, and there were some stunts that we had to do shoulder rolls and some other flips, and then at Radio City Music Hall, I get thrown off the stage and into the audience. And one time, it didn't go too well. And so I was sore for a while. The other thing is the wheels would come off the skates, and they'd go into the audience, and somebody would have a free souvenir. So it was interesting, and then we rehearsed to the song "Walk Like an Egyptian," so that got stuck in your head, and you were getting the shakes after a while. But here's the skate race.
No. I said best man, not beast man.
By the way, Beast Man is wearing makeup. He had an original headpiece. Someone went backstage and stole it. So you're seeing makeup, not the original headpiece.
Which one of you guys has it?
Go! And they're off. And what's exciting? Oh no, or go! Wrong way!
No, wrong way.
Now this is starting, man. Here they come. Get your rock on or go Flapjack, evil-lyn, Beast Man, and Snellspout. Let's cheer on those heroic warriors. Let them know you're with them. Let them hear ya. There, Crocodile, thanks, Captain. And it's Nico and Crocodile out. Oh, there's a fight happening up top. Wait a minute. Something else must be here. Oh, it's just a trick. And all four evil warriors are out in front, Dad. Evil-lyn gets the skeleton. And she is way out in front. I'm just having trouble getting to that snake chain up there. Pretty big trouble. What do you think of the fact that evil-lyn is way out in front and winning this race? Get it through? Oh, you don't like that, eh? Ready? Here comes Rocky.
Come on, ready? Right in front.
Yes, he's broken through. It's the boulder smasher. Way to go, Rocky. More excitement on hand here. Oh, it's a fighting. Snellspout is down. Holy Turnia. He-Man using some of that referee muscle to get rid of Beast Man.
Could you see us?
Here comes a strike.
Too much,
he
right?
must be pretty serious. To get you an update on Snellspout's
It was up all the way.
Just
It was up all the way.
oh, Rock on's down. Look out, Rock. Whoa. Hit George. I said no weapons. Well, they don't work on rocks. That champ's got him. The refrigerator door is closing. The extra chilling. The lights are out. And he's out of here, folks. There are 6 players left in that power rank. He-Man.
And all the time, Marcy is yelling,
Help, I'm blind, I can't. I'm on roller skates. Zero, over here. I can handle it. Time for our first obstacle, the Hoops of Doom. Now, as you can see behind me, hoops of electrolytes have been placed on this track, and these players must pass through them. Prepare, skaters, for the Hoops of Doom. Reverse. Here they come.
Gus, you said you choreographed the martial arts scenes. Was that
The battle, yeah, all of the battle sequences are mine. All of the sword fighting is mine, with help from everybody. Everybody put in a little input, suggestions, and because Jack and Leslie worked on the Conan show at Universal together, they had sword experience. So I showed them just some extra tricks, but which Leslie was coming backstage, show me something else. Show me something else. I want more. So she was up to the challenge, and I'd give her more.
Rock on down, and so is evil-lyn. And there are 4 players left. And now, Gelehrter of
Jack and
Darkness.
Leslie, you met during the Conan show at Universal. Yep, that was where you already married when you started doing the Power Tour?
Yes, we were married, let's see, we were 4 years into our marriage when we did the Power Tour. And,
So let me interject. I was just going over this with Forbes earlier. I was working out at Gold's Gym, Venice, and I heard that Conan's show was rehearsing at Universal Studios, and so ended up meeting a couple of the guys that were playing Conan, and they kept telling me that one of the Conans wasn't working out, and so I didn't really think much of it because I'd never done any work like that, and weeks go by, and they kept coming up to me and saying, Jack, you really need to. So anyway, I went to a payphone, and I called Universal on my
What's
first.
a payphone?
It's a thing. Was a thing. And so anyway, my first phone call, I get right through, to Tony Christopher. I mean, first phone call. And so he invites me down, and Forbes, I think you guys were in like a ATCO unit or a mobile office or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Tony Christopher was the director of the Power
so,
Tour, right? Yeah.
So Gary Goddard obviously wrote the, I think you wrote the show, right, Gary? Yeah. Yeah, wrote and directed it. Anyway, Tony was involved in part of that, and he was, in this case, looking for a Conan. So I go in, and they invite me up. So I go into the mobile trailer, and I, say, introduce myself, and they hand me a line, and I read it, and then they said, well, read it with a little bit more emphasis. And the line was, you no longer face a helpless old man or young boy. You now face Conan and all the powers of Crom, right? We know who Crom is, right? And so they say, well, do it a little bit bigger. So by the fourth take, they go, well, you can act, so let's see if you can handle a sword. So I go out, and Leslie's out filming the CBS commercial, the commercial for the show, and I didn't meet Leslie the first day, but ended up, the Conan she was working with was a Chippendales dancer who they didn't like him because he wasn't really he wasn't into the show, and so they
He was into himself.
I'm going to finish this real quick, but this is the end of the first half of the He-Man show, so it's okay to jabber a little bit. But anyway, long and short of it is, when she got back, I had learned the fight choreography in the 3 days. They had worked on it for
weeks. It was
6-7 weeks, something like that.
We were it was really cool. We were in a circus tent, and at the in the parking lot, where Universal Walk is now.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we were working on it a long time. Yeah.
So anyway, she came back from filming the commercial, and I was hired on, and she ended up becoming my Red Sonja until the dance choreographer, or maybe was he the fight choreographer?
The fight choreographer.
Yeah.
Lanny. You remember Lanny? Lanny Broyles.
Yeah. He separated us, and I got a different Red Sonja, but we befriended each other, and, long story short, dated her for a month, asked her to marry me. 2 months later, Universal put on our wedding.
So, what was kind of what? Yeah, we did. Okay, so what was really cool was what was really cool was that the guys at Universal, they realized that Red Sonja, how's that? Red Sonja and the couple. That was the couple, Red Sonja, right there. Yeah. So that Conan and Red Sonja were in love in real life, so they approached us and they said, hey, if you let us publicize your wedding, we'll take care of everything. And Jack and I kind of went, okay.
So MCA, right? This is MCA coming to us.
So
thrilled.
Needless to say, our wedding pictures look like we were married in the dungeons of hell. But the set was phenomenal. That
it was
show,
barbaric.
Gary, the Conan show was the most phenomenal show, and there was a moat, and there was a beautiful rain curtain. It was
and our wedding opened
phenomenal.
with the rain curtain.
It was phenomenal, and there were
phenomenal.
So, I was in traditional wedding garb, and it was Bob Mackey helped make the costumes for the show. It was phenomenal, and so he actually made my wedding dress, which was unbelievable. So it was the only expense that I had, and he didn't. He just asked that I pay for the material for the dress. He didn't charge the designer fees or anything. It was amazing, and he had his. Pete Menefee was there, and he said, well, what do you want? And I was never one of these gals that dreamed of my wedding day, so I didn't really know what I wanted. So I was describing things, and when I look back, I think I was channeling like Glinda the Good from, The Wizard of Oz, because I had the giant sleeves. So he drew it up, and he goes, like this? You want that? And I'm, what are you going to say? No? So I'm like, yes. Yeah, that's great. So Their deal was that they had, they got to have the barbarians on the set as we were getting married. So my mother, God rest her soul, will never forgive me because I had half-naked barbarians at my wedding. So, but you know what? 34 years later, it's still good. So. And then, thank you, Gary, for calling us to do this. Oh, gosh.
We're going to talk over the whole entire part of this show because this is the Eternian Circus, and it is not interesting to you guys.
This started out as the best idea of the show, and it never worked.
It just didn't work. I mean, you think Adam couldn't handle a sword? This could not handle a circus.
What
But
happened?
The best part of it was in rehearsal when we had the tech rehearsal,
Man.
and we were in the Eternian tunnel for like hours. It was just going on.
For
And they have to,
Eternia.
and
It was going
when
on
you
for
do
Eternia.
tech, when you do a show, tech, you understand. Tech takes a long time. They have to focus the lights. They have to get it right. And I, for the first part of the show, I was a giraffe, a giant giraffe. Me and the Eternian giraffes with these long necks, and we had this whole costume that I was strapped into, and it was me and Joe Davis, and we're holding on, and it had been a long time, and I hadn't really hydrated well, and I passed out. And so they said it was amazing. They said, we saw this giraffe, and it just went like this. Boom, And there was water on the set. Rest of
No, the black light idea seemed like an incredible idea at the time, but it never really worked.
Never worked.
Never worked.
Just never worked. And in arenas, you've got that extra spill of light, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So we ended up cutting it, and then the two of them had to kind of make the whole entire scene work by themselves, and so. But at that point, the whole thing had been programmed, the actual soundtrack. So we just had to go with it,
But once again, you have to imagine yourself 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years
Yeah, true.
old, and the skating in the circus. The problem with it probably is it just made the show really a long night for moms and dads.
And you can see it never got relit. See, it's black because you're supposed to be seeing a black light circus.
So you had.
What's going on, Mom?
Yeah.
Mom?
So the circus started out as like a big thing, and it just got progressively.
Huge costumes.
Oh, puppets. Okay, so you had the elephant and the monkey men, the dancers. Yeah.
Yeah, the puppets
It
were
was-
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, Lion King before anyone
That's
would
right.
think to do something that crazy.
That's right.
Now, in defense of what you're seeing on the screen, this is a camera that Gus probably bought in 1970. What?
1809.
Yeah.
18. So, you're looking at a VHS film that's been transferred to a DVD, and in this case, it's digitized, but it was rough at best even then.
And
Actually, what you're looking at is somebody's head that's standing in front of the camera.
That was a problem too. The other thing is, when I was recording these, I had whoever I can grab. One of them was the bus driver. We inherited the Annie tour bus, and the driver of the bus would sit around bored watching the show. So I convinced him to do the camera work. So he's never done anything like that. He didn't know the front end from the back end of the camera, but he would grab it and do this. There is another copy I gave them earlier of this that's actually quite a bit better. It didn't have that blackout for that length of time, but they didn't play that today. I guess they decided to play this one. And the other thing is it's a little more crisp. I watch it at home on my LED projector, and it's pretty crisp, so I don't know why it's coming out so fuzzy. But it's old equipment, and it was old videotapes I transferred to DVD. And, it's the best that I could do, and this is what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what's interesting is it was never filmed. We had nothing to go on, so you're the only source of history, Gus. So,
Yeah, I've never seen this until today.
Doesn't exist. if it wasn't for Gus, there'd be no history, no recorded history.
Gus, did you ask a friend to film it, to record it during the show? Or?
Well, I have about 20 shows recorded. I had 3 shows that were recorded were the best of the best. And one of them was the prank show. The poop on the shoulder. We fought, there was battle sequences, and we come out with the swords. Instead of swords, we used the inflatable shark Jaws doll, the balloon thingies, and we fought with that. And not everybody was in on it, so Sally Bartunik and me as Ninjor, we have to go and battle. So I reach backstage where my sword should be, and I come out, and there's Jaws. And Sally's like, no! I said, yes. No! Yes! And, nobody could hear us. And so we did this whole sequence with a shark, and we did the whole fight, and I had that on tape, and I got fined $600. But it was a great show.
Which was a month's wages.
Yeah, that's we weren't getting paid a lot, but you take what you can get. But nevertheless, the videotape with those 3 fantastic shows I loaned it to my sister, and she had it in a VCR. She was robbed. They stole the VCR with the tape inside. So unfortunately, that is gone for good. Who knows where it is?
When I sent this to Val, not to interrupt you, I asked him to cut this whole scene. I don't know why we're suffering through the Eternian circus.
Well, there's the giraffe kind of thing, isn't it? Yeah, they
Is that
tortured.
you, Ma?
That's no, it's Joe. Maybe it's Joe.
And there's the Z-Bright.
Oh, the Z-Bright. I actually like that thing.
So I wanted to say one more thing about something that didn't work, that we improvised, but we were able to, which was the opening of the show when they bring Man-at-Arms in. They bring Man-at-Arms and he had this giant cannon, and the opening of the show they say Man-at-Arms, and Man-at-Arms comes out with this giant cannon and he goes boom, boom, and there are these 2 targets on the back wall that explode. And confetti covers the whole audience. It is supposed to be absolutely amazing. And they never fired, ever. So they're and like I can see the 3, they're all together. They're all like talking, and I just went, and I and they're giving me the gun to go like this, and nothing happens. And I just put the gun down and I said, why don't I just say something? Because it doesn't work this way. And they went, well, what are you going to say? And, I said, well, all these people know me, so why don't I ask them, do you know me? And then get a response from the crowd and get them responding right away. And they went, all right, let's try it, And sure enough, it worked. And that was the opening line of the show.
Yep.
Now, during intermission, did you ever go out and see the kids at all in character or in costume? Or
we were exhausted.
Yeah. We were absolutely exhausted. But I tell you what, afterward, what was so rich is we would go out and some of the kids would come back. And I remember one little guy ran up to Jack and just looked up at him, and he just was in awe, and he just had like tears in his eyes, and he said, I knew you were real. That just kind of stuff just melts your heart. You get that night after night. Yeah.
And what you mentioned, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, now you actually went to the hospital as He-Man and She-Ra, right?
Yeah. We did, yeah.
That's
all
awesome.
All over.
Yeah. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that all about?
What happened? So, Zack.
Yes.
What were we doing? What were we doing at that time to encourage kids to get their swords?
Oh well, we did the
swearing in.
The swearing in, and then we did the salute. We did the Eternian salute. You missed it. It was really fabulous. It was a while ago.
It was at the beginning.
And then of course, He-Man. Like we do the salute, and all of our swords goes up, and then we sort of swore them in like they were deputies. Okay. Yeah. And if you want to protect, Earth from Skeletor, raise your hand or your power sword and repeat after He-Man.
Yeah.
And then, He-Man goes, I have the power. And we go, and there's intermission, right? And then we come back from intermission, and there's 3,000 power swords, and they're all like, yeah. So we think the Rooney family
But I
owes us
kept
some
this
money.
instead.
Yeah.
Actually, I got a power sword this week, so
Very cool.
little one.
There's a copy I brought with me. They have it right now, and it does show a pan of the audience and the kids lifting their little lightsaber swords and whatnot. So we do have a copy of that. I don't know what they're going to show tonight. If I can talk them into showing them that first half, that better. It's a better copy. For me, it was a better copy, better show, but I know they wanted to, because of what we're doing up here, they wanted to play this because it goes straight through. And but what was interesting, sometimes there's a battle sequence going to come after the circus, and I'm in the audience now. I'm with the other bad guys. We're in the audience, and we're sitting down, and I sit down next to kids, and they're looking at He-Man, just drooling, and then they realize, because they could smell my costume, that I'm next to them, and they go, and so they jump and they start beating me with their swords. So they're taking me out with and I'm like, okay, I got it. I'm leaving. I gotta go fight.
Theater, Here we go. Listen to this. Turn this up. This is cool.
They carry a total of 10,000 of your earth pounds. Observe. Come here. Stand up now. Stand up. Come on, stand up.
Somebody stands right. It's 5 times right there. 5 times.
I had my readings that day.
What's he doing? He's
Down front, please.
Amazing. And now we're going to...
Well, circus, is it? Another playful little game unattended by yours truly and his evil warriors. Surely you forgot to send me an invitation.
Your evil henchmen are not needed here, Skeletor.
You are wrong, Sheila. No show of attorneys magical right to speak of me without my own representatives. That's why I have taken the liberty of putting them in your show.
Then they must have missed their cue, Cranium Head. There's no one here from Snake Mountain.
Yes, again.
There's one.
Wait! We will not fight your warriors in front of our Earth friends, Skeletor.
That's a good one, He-Man. As if I cared about your bite-sized little rubies. Destroy them all!
So this goes on for a while.
And thus you choreographed all this here? You choreographed all this, the fighting? That's cool.
So aerobics. Aerobics with swords.
Now, depending on the arena you went to, I assume you had to change the specifications of the set in some way? Like, how did that work? Can anybody address that?
With Radio City Music Hall, we had to shorten the track quite a bit because the stage was short. And so they had to change things up, and backstage was nothing. There was no room backstage, very little room to go behind the set. So they had to modify a few things, and we had some injuries trying to adjust. We had injuries in rehearsal and during the show, but we were doing a lot of shows too, and you're pretty exhausted. I mean, Jack, I was joking with him earlier, but I'm always surprised that he didn't get a heart attack up there because he was, 2 shows, sometimes 3 shows, and you see the choreography that I'm torturing him with. And I had, I was young and inexperienced, so I didn't realize what I was trying to kill this man. But he did a fantastic job in keeping up. He didn't let anybody know that how exhausted he really was. When you're doing this much action, this much fighting, and a big person, and your heart's pumping. But you'd never know how exhausted he was up there. He hit it real well. He did a fantastic job playing the part. So I overdid it on the choreography a little bit, but it made the show what it was. It made him He-Man. It made him more fantastic than She-Ra and everybody else. It was a very energetic show. Everybody was sweating. If somebody wasn't sweating, they fired. Goodbye, go home. So everybody worked really hard on this show. There was nobody being lazy.
And you mentioned injuries. I remember hearing Doug Howard, who played Songster for a good part of the run, he hurt himself pretty badly at one point.
He had a real bad scare up in the air. When he was up on that lift that Erik was talking about earlier, he was up and it broke loose. There's these two bars that are clamped into this thing holding all this weight. And they're tied to this thing in case something should happen. They're secured. One side came out. Oh. He held on for dear life, never let on that there was something wrong. He stayed up there, you heard a little, like something like this, but he stayed quiet, he stayed up there, and they brought him down finally, and we continued the show.
And he hit those high notes, too.
He just went on like nothing, but he was injured, he got hurt. But another young lady on skates broke a leg, pretty bad. She was, Janet, just as we did Radio City, this is her home. She wants to do Radio City, and she didn't get the chance. She just did the rehearsal, broke her leg, and she was out for good. And we had, like finger injuries. These swords, they're, you saw them out there. If you saw the display, they had the swords out there. Those are the swords from the show. And if you make a mistake and hit somebody in the finger, it's done. And we had a few injuries like that, a shattered finger and so on.
This is a great sequence with Skeletor.
And that goes for your little buddies, too. Ninja! Fire at will!
Wait. Do as he says. Lay down your weapons.
Sound familiar, Gary?
Good.
Lay down your weapons.
Hurry! He-Man, haven't you forgotten something? The power sword. Give me the power sword.
Go get it.
At last, the power sword is mine, along with the secrets of Grayskull.
Shoulder acting.
Command, Skeletor. This sword makes you the most powerful man in the universe.
Excuse me, Skeletor, but I must say this is totally out of order and a rather vulgar display of... On the other hand, I've been wrong before.
And now, He-Man She-Ra, get into that cage. Cover it with something and haul it into the air.
I really feel sick.
That makes two of us. I am really sick of you, you mountainous moron. Now, my little medieval munchkin, the time has come for you to...
Watch out! These hands are lethal weapons. From the tip of Grayskull's tower comes a sword to make you cower. Now you think you have the power, but you can see it's now a flower.
Flowers? What do I do with these?
Actually, they could use a little water.
That little wizard is getting away! Ninja! Blast him! He-Man?
Looking for me, little brat?
She-Ra?
All right, Skeletor. I don't want any of my Earth friends in danger. So why not settle our differences? Just you and me, man to man.
Your heroic warriors won't interfere.
They won't interfere. I give you my word.
All right. You will fight me and me alone. And if you lose, all of your Earth friends will become my slaves at Snake Mountain.
You have my word.
Beastman, my sword!
Here, He-Man. Good as new.
Thanks, little buddy.
Master, if I may be so bold as to say something.
Yes, what is it?
You are a dead duck.
Warriors, come
circle of decision. He-Man, your left arm. Gelehrter, yours. Now, warriors, form the circle. And let this battle begin!
This is my third battle, but it was Jack's 8th or 9th Friday night, so...
But I have peripheral vision.
So, it's just the way you wanted it, isn't it? He-Man against Gelehrter. Well, don't look now, Flesh-Face, but Gelehrter has you surrounded. I am here, He-Man. I am here, He-Man. I am also here.
Now, Gus, you played Skeletor when they did the trio, right?
Sometimes, when somebody got injured or sick, I would be one of the third, and which was really hard to get back into Ninja right after that. But just once, a few times, just a few
I
times.
gave my word. One of these is the real Skeletor, and I will find it.
Because I'm He-Man.
A lot of the musical cues are familiar from the Filmation cartoons. Do you know who composed the music for the Power Tour? Who wrote the songs and had all the instrumentals, the synthesizer?
Oh, Michael. You would think I would know that as a former singer, but Michael Rapp wrote the songs for Songster and the Sorceress and such. And the instrumental music was done by John Debney and Gary Gutman. Gary Gutman also wrote the score for Captain Power.
Looks like the fun's over.
Oh, but the fun's just begun, He-Man.
Now,
I shan't give you the pleasure of
was
dispensing
Filmation
me.
involved at all, since you had some of the voice actors and some of the music?
No.
No?
No, not at all. I mean, again, we hired some of the actors, and we licensed some of the music. That was it.
You'll have to get through me first.
That will be my pleasure.
Okay, 3 shows a day of this. Imagine that.
What is happening down there? Contracts, who you read? Morrison, quick there. The transporter, turn it on. Activate transporter ignition, hurry. He-Man, we are ready to receive the evil warriors. Activate transporter, now.
I got to run the audience and Terrifies Kids.
Drive them toward the transporter tunnel. Captain Morrison,
I think there was a point where like Shaw had really choreographed some real dancing in this sequence, and then she just went, "I just kill each other."
We're sending them back to through the transporter back to Eternia, one by one.
It's really tough that for the elements to come across on film. It's tough.
funny. We were just about to blast you, Skeletor.
You needn't waste your ammunition. You've won this battle, He-Man, but the war still rages on Eternia. And when you return, I'll be there You haven't heard the last of me. I'll be
Look, everybody! It's the sorceress, guardian of Grayskull.
Once again, He-Man and She-Ra, you have defended Grayskull from the dark forces. Eternia will be forever in your debt, and forever grateful to your heroic warriors.
We couldn't have done it without the help of our young Earth friends in the Order of Grayskull.
Indeed, the faith and goodwill of the people of Earth served us well. Remember this day in your hearts, and remember too that the power is within you to combat the evils of this world.
So, not to speak over this song, but the message of the whole show is to speak not only about the power of Grayskull, but to tell the children that they have the power to be what they want to be. So we had protests in Mobile, Alabama, and different areas where we'd go, but the message, regardless
they'd protest before they'd seen the show.
Regardless of the fact that we had a sorceress, which would against, some faith issues, it was about this message right here. So we're singing right to the children and getting right down in the audience with these children. It's fabulous.
And they are in the palm of our hands. I mean, they are participating.
Yeah, I apologize for the video, but the show live was absolutely, amazing.
Can you think of a children's show today that would be over 2 hours long? I mean, the attention span that 30 years ago that we were able to hold, the show's able to hold for children. It's just remarkable thinking
In
back in that night.
recognition of this most auspicious event, I hereby proclaim the Festival of Light.
This is an awesome opportunity for great costuming. So each one of the characters that's a main character in this has a sparkling, if you will, light show costume. So there's King Randor. Man-at-Arms and Songster are the two exclusions.
Skeletor's warriors have been apprehended, and we are ready to transport you back to Eternia, right on schedule.
Then begin sequence up, now!
Roger.
Good night, everyone! We have been the masters of the universe! Applause for King Randor and Queen Marlena! Let's hear it for my heroic warrior, Passionate and Real Lord!
Now, when your last show of the night, would you get right on the road and move on to the next town?
Ladies and gentlemen,
No.
Let's see, we were dark. We would be in a show for a week. We were dark on Mondays, and that was our travel day. Go to the next location.
Well, the set
They'd be loading the set
Yeah.
at the last show.
Yeah.
So as we're walking off the stage,
They're packing
stuff was gone. Just gone.
So right here, these costumes are all lit up. You can't tell because of the spotlight. But it's a great image.
Don't go, He-Man, don't go!
added some credits there.
That's cool.
If anybody has any questions, please come up to the microphone here. Please come. This is your opportunity here to ask some questions to the cast and crew of the Power Tour.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I was just wondering, since it's the first time we got to see this in over 30 years, is there a possibility of it coming out on Blu-ray or DVD or somewhere near in the future or a year? Is there anything that we can get that, or is it possible?
Well, you all are hardcore.
I guess that question's for me. The problem I had was I tried my best to get in contact with Gary back there and Pace Concerts. I didn't want to distribute or sell anything without their permission, so I tried contacting them in L.A. and I didn't get through. Nobody would let me get through or talk to anybody. I called Jack, thinking maybe he's got ins with them and they can talk to them, because I didn't want to do this. Yeah, I didn't want to do this illegally. I didn't, you know, the copyright and all this other stuff. I wanted them to be a part of this because they're, you know, it's all them. It's all them.
Exactly.
This is his work. This is not my work. It's his work. So I didn't want to, and I've been sitting on these tapes for years. And so I did my best, and I said, you know what? And people on YouTube, I put clips on YouTube.
There's little clips here and there on YouTube.
Hello? Okay, they were back. No, I'm only kidding.
Really?
I'm teasing now. But anyway, so yeah, I wanted to go through them, and I didn't want to go over their head and try to do something like this in disrespect. So I did my best to try to contact them, and I didn't get through. So I put clips on YouTube. I got a lot of comments. Where's the rest? Where's the rest? I said, and I wrote on YouTube. Those who read said, I don't want to do this.
Yeah,
I don't want to put the whole thing on there
read
because
them actually, yeah.
I said, you know, there's copyright laws and all this other stuff. I need to find out from them and get their permission to see what I can and cannot do.
Now, say you get the permission from whatever parties you can. Is there a better quality copy, or you'd have to fix this one, polish this one up?
Well, no. There's a whole bunch of good parts, and I have like 20 shows recorded. So I have all of these little bits and pieces I want to edit professionally.
Okay.
We were working on that for today.
Oh, great.
And my computer crashed. But anyway, so I'm going to make contact and talk to a few people, see what needs to be done.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure people will buy it.
A handful of people will buy this, and I'm okay with that. I get all the heads going, yes.
It's the only canon of masters that we don't have anything from.
Right. I understand that, and I this is a part of some of you remember being there as a child.
I was there. I was there reading.
Yeah.
I was there reading music.
How many people saw the show live? If you remember when you were a little. Wow. Okay, so there's a handful.
I still got my sword. I got all the things I was holding. Yeah. I got everything still.
So I'll see what I can do, and as soon as I do that, I'll post it on YouTube, and we'll go from there. And that would be a way to. But I won't leave you in the dark. I know a lot of you guys tried contacting me, and you thought I just blew you off, but I didn't. I just wanted to do the right thing and talk to the right people, and make sure I do things.
You gotta go
the right channels. Exactly.
So
I want to do it.
So for those of you that went to the show, how old were you?
I don't remember.
12?
Did this jog your memory of what the show was like? I mean, 30 years ago.
I remember bits and pieces of it, but yeah, this like gelled.
Yeah.
And I think I like blanked out on the circus.
we all blanked out on the circus.
Okay.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hello, my question isn't as technical. I just want to know, were you guys allowed to keep the costumes that they gave you?
No.
My costume walked away.
On its own?
On its own. I would detox every night in that costume. And it got up and it left. I don't know where it is.
I actually stole the Circus of Lights costume for me and had it for a while and would set it out on Halloween for a while. Then, I don't know what happened to it. I do have the Conan original costume from Universal.
Oh, wow.
Because it was made for one person.
Yeah. Okay.
No one would want to wear it after that.
Just to add to that, these costumes were made out of cushion, like a padded cushion, and it soaked in sweat, and we wore it over and over, and they would try to steam clean them and do all of this to help nothing could help. You can see the smell coming off of these things. And so, we were very hopeful that they would make a second or
And
third
they
one
were
for
and
us.
they were starting to fall apart. I mean, after that many.
No, foam has a tendency to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
our costumes were all falling off.
All right, thank you.
First off, I just want to say thank you, Gus, for putting those on YouTube.
Yeah, sure.
I never saw it as a kid, and that I just freaked out. Loved it. But I have a question for Jack and Leslie and Gary. There is I do remember the Conan show at Universal Studios. I used to go all the time. My mom worked there. There were some similarities, like storyline wise. Like Conan was another person who transformed into Conan, but that was way before the movie, probably around 85, 86. Like, what was that like? Like, kind of like doing a weird kind of take on Conan, and how did that kind of like correlate or like, I don't know, just talk about like playing Conan and He-Man and Prince Adam and whoever that character that transformed into Conan was.
It was young Conan.
Obviously, I want Gary to interject, but on the Conan show, I didn't play the first role, which was a young Conan, and much smaller, man or young man than I was at the time. The transformation was the same, though. That they engineered, which was an elevator. That in this case, young Conan would pull the sword out of a rock, and he would be enveloped by mist, if you will, which was CO2, and then the elevator would go down as I'm coming up, and as the mist subsided, I would say that line, you no longer face the helpless old man or young boy thing.
Fantastic transformation. It was great.
And so I'd have to segue to Gary to answer why we did the same thing with Prince Adam, but it makes sense because Prince Adam is He-Man. I mean, transformation. So what a great transformation to do right in front of your eyes, where the only thing obscuring the transformation would be CO2. Now, for that transformation, I wore all Velcro attached clothes. So Tila, in this case, Sally.
Sorceress ripped you.
Excuse me, the sorceress. Sally Bartunik would pull that off under, behind this CO2 veil, and that's sometimes where Doug would do his cape and double mask the activity that was going on, and that was to get that Prince Adam costume off of me, because underneath that whole time I'm playing Prince Adam, I'm wearing the full costume of He-Man. But great transformation, and it just made the chills for both show, Conan and He-Man. It was just really energetic, I thought. Yeah. And then Leslie came out the same way in the He-Man show. Sally went down and Leslie came up that elevator. Same thing, and covered by CO2.
So it wasn't really difficult to segue from a barbarian to a superhero, to answer your question. Not too tough.
Or Master of the Universe.
So I just became aware of Power Tour, I think, through PowerCon when you guys had your table. And I instantly became mad at my parents for not taking me. I scolded them that night. So I have two questions. One, advertising, marketing, how did you guys market the tour? And two, in watching it, once you guys started the show, was working out no longer a necessity because of all the activity you guys had during the performances?
Well, we did a lot of advertising. Leslie I did a television commercial with a stand-in for Leslie on the television commercial. So whenever we were going to a city, they ran the TV spot. And then we would Leslie and I would go to radio stations and television talk shows, and we would be in character on radio and television and go to hospitals in character. So we had all kinds of ways of promoting that. And then we had a great media company that went ahead of us and did stories, like saving New York City. That was a big thing.
And what was really cool was we were invited to the annual Easter egg hunt at the White House when
Yeah.
Reagan was president. That was really cool. Yeah. That
So
was cool.
yeah, we got to meet. Ronald Reagan was out of the White House at the time, but we got to meet George Bush Sr. and I gave Barbara. I put around her neck what's called the Eternian Orb of Friendship. I have one up in my room. It's the last one, but Barbara Bush, pretty important person. And on an Easter egg hunt in the Rose Garden.
And we still have
The Easter egg.
The Jelly Bellies.
Yeah,
we
Jelly
still
Bellies.
have the little tiny package of Jelly
Because Ronald Reagan was a Jelly Belly guy, and so you have the Easter Jelly Bellies from 1987. How's that sound?
That's scary.
But I have the key to the dressing room for Radio City Music Hall still too, so I took that.
Oh,
with me.
wow.
It says Radio City.
Now, I know several of you were aware that that there was an interest in the Power Tour and a following for the Power Tour. But Erik, I think when we got in touch with you, you were pretty surprised that Val told me when he got in touch with you. What was your reaction to that?
I thought he was a stalker. I had no idea what was going on. It's like, are you the Erik Van Baars that was Skeletor in '87? I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? And so when they said the 30th, at first I freaked out that when I realized it was 30 years ago we did this, and I was in denial for a couple weeks. And then I said, I'd love to do this just to be able to see these wonderful people again and spend an afternoon with them. This has been great.
Awesome. I was Googling and I was like, wait a minute, this is Erik Van Baars. He's Skeletor. And then I told Val, and then he gave you a call. So
I teach college, and for years, I would wait for the students to find out I was Skeletor, and then I'd come in and I'd wear my show jacket one day, and it was a great street cred to know your teacher was Skeletor. So that really helped my teaching for a couple of years. Be better, be better.
Do we have any other questions? Any other questions here? Any closing thoughts? Gary, any closing thoughts here from you?
No, it was another fun project to work on. I was more involved in the conceptualization of it, and I looked at it. I put myself through Cal Arts as a college student teaching children's theater classes, and I'd done children's theater shows. So I thought, all right, this is going to be the world's biggest children's theater show. We're going to interact, just like your comment of who am I? Because in kids shows, unlike adults, they're willing to say, where is Skeletor? I don't see him. He's behind you. So kids will do that, and so the whole idea of that show was to bring the cast into the audience, get them involved, and then use blacklight, even if it didn't work as well as it should have. But as Forbes said, I'd just seen, whoever.
Starlight.
And Starlight Express. And I said, let's do that. Let's do everything we can. And because we were in a big house, everything had to be big. So the idea of the black light and the big puppets, the idea of the racing, the idea of pyrotechnics,
Rock concert.
and the idea of using music to connect. So you weren't just doing like a kind of a continuous stunt show. But if you analyze all the beats, all things were designed for kids in a children's theater way, but on a gigantic canvas, right? Yeah. So that was the basic conceit. And then if there was a little bit of cheating from Conan, you have to blame that on Tony, because I wasn't staging that. He was stealing the good bits.
Jen, I have a closing remark actually off
Oh,
of that.
please, go for it, yeah.
So the power swords that the kids went out to get at intermission, first of all, the lines were like insane. They had to actually add extra people selling stuff because, basically if a kid saw another kid get it and that mom or dad said no, they would just cry until they got a sword. Now, ironically, the way that originally came up I was kidding when I said the money, but the way that came up in the script development was there was this guy named Larry Sadoff who they brought in as a consulting producer, quote unquote, and he had done all the Sesame Street shows, and we had a meeting with him one day. It was me, Gary, and Tony, and Rich Hogue, and he said, quote, "Now you guys can't get upset when after intermission nobody comes back." And we were like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, well, you know, they just tell Johnny, show's over, time to go home. And so we said, okay, what do we come up with that, you know, number one, will make them come back, or number two, how can we do something that nobody else has done related to that? And the whole idea of the power sword was with the dialogue with He-Man saying, you know, basically that you have to come back and help me. The kids would just, I mean, I'm telling you, I stood in Radio City every single show out at intermission, and with parents, again, trying to drag the kid, you know, out of there, and they just would not do it. You know, they wanted to go back in to see if Skeletor got knocked off or whatever, you know. And but the greatest thing of that whole entire storyline is the fact that Larry never could figure out how we could get all those, you know, 3,000 to 6,000 people to go back in, you know, after the fact. And then years later, we did the Turtles, the Ninja Turtles tour, and I supervised the producing of that show. And I remember we didn't write that one. We just we created all the costumes and the special effects, and by that point, we then went to the next step, which was to really have the, you know, the rubber and not the foam. And those guys nearly died in those costumes live. But I remember we went in to read the first script that Bob Bejan had written, and I said, what's going to make them come back at intermission? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, you know, according to Larry Sadoff, everyone leaves at intermission. So we had the same type of gag thing, which was related to the pizza thing, which actually the pizza company paid for it, and the kids went out and did the same exact thing. They had to come back into the audience with something. So I think there's a little lesson to be learned there that today, if you go see one of these family shows today, because of all the, you know, the digital world and everything, and, you know, the kid grows up on this, they can't appreciate it the same way, which is really sad.
It's just like the filmation, at the end of filmation, they always had, like, you know, that moral whatever.
Exactly.
They
Yep.
just done that stuff today.
Right.
Zack, any closing thoughts from you?
I was live through the whole thing, and in Baton Rouge, I forgot I was live, and I got off. We did the show. I was exhausted. It was our first show, and I walked off the stage, and I looked at the costumer, and I said, "Get this shit off of me," and it went out. Right?
Mike was on.
Mommy, what was that word? What did Ben and Arm say?
You know. So from that point on, anytime I will always be your man at arms. And then Robert Felipe, Bubba, who we called him, would go like this, and turn me off. And I knew my mistake the first time, so I never did it again. But yeah, that was my welcome into the universe.
Gus?
Well, a couple of thoughts. One is I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be here, because nobody really knows Ninjor. So I thank you for that, for allowing me to. Because I talk to people about it and they go, Ninjor? No. He-Man. Skeletor. Yeah, She-Ra. Yeah, we had.
You are the only actor who
really
has ever
wants it.
played Ninjor.
Yeah, well, I had when I had an injury, one of them had to wear my wonderful costume, and Hans Tessman.
Hans Bon Jovi.
Hans Bon Jovi. He even doubled as evil-lyn. I have video
right.
of Hans wearing evil-lyn's costume, and he did evil-lyn fantastic. So it's one of the videos I do have.
He was also the Z-Bright.
The Z-Bright that you saw lighting up. So a lot of people don't know who Ninjor is, other than the comic strips and so on. But they wrote me into this thing, and when I auditioned, I remember auditioning for Forbes and Christopher, in New York City, and I did my first audition. Didn't go too well because of my dancing skills was really poor, and so I said, "You don't mind? You guys don't mind? I'm sharing a story with you, right? I'm not trying to take up too much time because I have to go to the bathroom too." Not supposed to mention that to Jack, but anyway, I saw after my terrible dancing, and I saw a push broom off to the side, and I said, "Would you guys mind if I pick up this broom and show you some things?"
This is a true story, by the way.
Yeah, and so I grabbed the broom and I just started doing my thing, and they were taken back, and I said, "We need you to come back." And so a few weeks or so went by, and I came back for another audition. They said, "Can you bring more weapons?" So I had this large bag, a body bag, full of weapons, and I bring it onto the subway illegally. So I show up at the second audition. Meanwhile, I have. This is New York City.
New York City.
Yeah, I'm on the subway with this bag. Easily arrested. Oh, they would have shot me. And so I have the bag. I show up. I'm sweating profusely because I have a fever of 101. I was really sick. But I put on the audition for them. They recorded it. They had a recording. Forbes was recording the whole thing. Did a fantastic audition. He pulls me off to the side with Christopher and says, "Listen, you ever do choreography?" And I lied and said yes. But I've done film, but not stage choreography like this. And so I said, "Yeah, no, it's not a problem." He says, "Okay." And then I said, "Well, am I going to be an actor? We want you to do both. Am I going to get paid for both?" He said, "We'll talk about that later." So, but nevertheless, they did hire me right then and there and said, "You're going to be doing the choreography for the battle sequences, and then you're going to be playing some characters, and we'll look into that later on." And there it was. So I was hired.
And as you can see, he did a fabulous job because that
thank
stuff was dangerous.
Yeah, thank you. And I got a lot of input from the different people. So that's that. I lost my train of thought on the other thing I was going to say. So I'm just going to pass it over. So everyone can go on. But
Erik?
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Question? Yeah. Do either of you guys know how the idea of He-Man came to be?
Well, according to some of the toy makers that we've talked to, and we've worked with Corey Landis, I believe it is, right, Gary and group. He-Man was a creation of Mattel's toy makers, and they came up with different ideas. Different people claim that they came up with the image He-Man, and
I met one today.
yeah. What was that?
Mark Taylor.
Yeah, and there's a guy in I can't remember.
Mark Taylor, Roger Sweet.
Yeah, right. Roger Sweet. That's who I had a
people
chance.
Claim that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Power of Grayskull documentary.
Okay.
Tonight in
there
here.
you go.
Come and see that.
Come see that.
You got to come dressed as He-Man, though.
Wouldn't he be an awesome King He-Man? With the beard, rocking the beard, right?
Cast me as King He-Man. That's my next role.
Erik, closing thoughts.
Just that this was a year of our lives, and as an actor coming in from New York and coming into this and didn't have a background in stunt work at all, it was such a wonderful experience. We rehearsed for 5 weeks here, and then we teched for 3 weeks and 2.5 weeks in Louisiana. So it was a really quality tour, and when it ended, we were all sad that it ended because we were going on a high note. And I think back that it's hard to believe that 30 years has passed, and just thank you all for coming here and sharing this with us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Can I just got that other thought that was interesting, and it has to do with them as well. We were talking. Zack was talking about soundtracks and all. When we first did the earlier shows, they did it on a reel-to-reel system on a timer, and the actors had to work in sequence with the timer. And this thing would go. And, I am He-Man. And this is live. We're doing this is the test shows, and this reel-to-reel thing in the timer wasn't working, and we're all trying to keep up with it. So you could see some of the actors, going, and trying to keep up, going, what are we doing? So eventually they changed it, and it worked out, as you saw, much better than the reel-to-reel. That didn't work, but that was the other thought I
and wanted this to share. was, it was before CDs and all that stuff, and I used to run the the sound in the tech rehearsals, right? So literally, 2 tapes on a tape machine have to find, going back, you can't find where you were, There's no numbers or anything, right? And it used to drive me absolutely crazy, 'cause, Tony would go, that's not where I'm talking about. I'm trying to find it, man. but there's nothing to tell you where it is.
Right. It's all brown.
Yeah, exactly. It's all brown.
Just
It's all
round
brown
and
tape.
brown. Yeah. Brown tape.
Leslie, any closing thoughts?
Who would have thunk, right? 30 years. I mean, 30 years ago, we got to play all day with these great people, and that, if I knew 30 years ago that I'd be sitting here today talking to you folks that are continue to keep this alive. I mean, I think, not to get hokey or anything, but that's the spirit of the Masters of the Universe, and it's a real privilege and an honor to be standing up here talking to you all, and you're keeping us alive. So thank you.
My message is the same, and that's thank you, first of all, and we really love you guys. What we've noticed about all of the He-Man geeks that are here, and you should wear that with a badge of honor, is that you're just charming people that love what you love, and we love the fact that you love it. So, as He-Man would say to you, you have the power to be anything you want to be. Change the world from good to bad if you only knew you could be. You.
Bad to good.
Bad to good. Whatever. Bad to good. Or good to bad. Change it whichever way you want. But you have the power.
The 30 years is showing up.
Bad. That was a Freudian slip, I think. Wasn't it?
That was an Eternian slip.
Eternian slip. I don't know if we have time. I know I have to run to the restroom, but if we have time, Danielle, I have the afternoon show is a quick interview, a really good piece of film. It's probably 10, 12 minutes, 15 max, of Leslie and I getting interviewed in San Francisco on the afternoon show. If we have time, I'd like.
Oh, I'd love.
All right, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break. Can we do that?
We got the cosplay contest.
Cosplay contest is coming up. No, they gotta keep moving.
No interview. Oh, well, maybe we can show it tonight. Are you guys going to come down
maybe
tonight?
tonight.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
let's hear it
Thank you, Danielle.
from-